Hello, hello. Welcome back to Business Happy Hour. Guys, I think this is the first episode that I don't have a coffee with. You've been like through my whole journey. I think at one point on the episodes, I was trying to go the decaf route. Anyway, I had a delicious coffee this morning and it was La Colombe. They have this like cereal. I live right next to a La Colombe, and they have a cereal milk latte, iced latte, and it was so freaking good. So the plan was to record while I was drinking my latte, but then things came up and now we're here. So today, I have a really exciting episode for you. I'm doing a little bit of a case study. So, I want to kind of talk about what I do with my clients, the results that my clients get, but from a perspective of like, hey, let's pull back the curtain. Here's the inside scoop. Here's what you guys can potentially have for yourselves too. Here's what your business can provide for you as well. Okay. So, I want to talk about one of my clients who is a one-on-one client. She signed up with me back in, I want to say December. Okay. And when we were first chatting, she was very much so feeling like her business was very messy. She felt like she didn't really have a plan. She felt like she was always flying by the seat of her pants. She felt like there was just no rhyme or reason to anything. It was like constantly throwing spaghetti at the wall, being like, let's just see what happens next. There was no like plan or strategy to be like, hey, we want to double enrollment for this group cohort. How are we going to actually do that? How are we going to take what we already know, what we've already done, and amplify the hell out of it? Right. So, I'm going to kind of take you guys through what we did together and where she is now. And the piece where it's like, this is what we did together, I think is going to be really, really helpful for you guys because we always want more direction. We always want insight into like, hey, this worked for this person. How can I make it work for me too? Right? Not from a place of like, oh, if it works for their business, it will work for mine. But if you are in that experimentation phase and you're like, I'm just trying different things, it can be really helpful. So, as I mentioned, she was in a place. I'm going to kind of take you through different sectors of where I saw some holes in her business. So, the first place was that there were no she has a great audience. She has a great audience full of ideal clients. But there was no place to work with her other than a $2,000 group at the time. Okay. So there was really only these high ticket ways to work with her. And I see this so often, especially these days. Like, this used to be fine. We could get people to just sign up for things that were high ticket, but people are being a lot more cautious with their buying these days. Not necessarily from an economic standpoint, but from an online buying standpoint, people are getting used to it now. They're kind of seeing, okay, there are lower tier options. I can get a guide for $30. Why do I want to join this $3,000 program? Do I really need it? Right. So our marketing and our strategy needs to be even better than it's ever been. Okay. Not only specific in our messaging and our marketing, but even deeper than that. We really need to paint the picture for them. Now, how do we do this? Obviously, content is a component of that. And that's definitely an angle and a piece that we took a look at where it's like, hey, how can we just word things a little bit differently? Right. So I'm going to break it down into, again, 3 things that we changed. So the first thing, this was taking note that she had the eyes, she had the audience, but they were not converting. Okay. Had the eyes, had the audience, not converting. And then under that, like, so let's take that as like the overall gap that I was seeing, right? I'm like, okay, we need to dwindle this down and figure out what we need to do from here. So basically, we determined She has the eyes, the audience isn't converting at the rate that it should be based on the amount of people that she was having view her stuff, right? So I dug a little bit deeper. We had these conversations and she was in one-on-one. So we were able to really, really dive deep fast. And there were three things under that umbrella that I saw. One was messaging. Two was her sales process. And three, kind of part of the sales process, was the lack of warm up or opportunities to get to know her better before jumping into her higher ticket offers. Okay. So messaging, sales process, and warm up process, if you will. And if we want to add a fourth in there, we can go product suite. Okay. Because product suite is essentially a component of the warming up phase. So first thing we did is we really worked on her messaging. So let me back up for a second. When we first started working together, she was actually kind of in a place where she was like, I don't really want to invest right now. I need a break. I need to just like take a minute. And as the conversation kind of went on, I was like, I totally understand that, but I'm seeing so many things that I want to dive deep on. And she was like, you know what? You're right. Like I need so much help right now, right? I'm never going to get to the business that I want to get to without someone telling me where I'm going wrong, because I don't know where I'm going wrong. And having that outside perspective has literally made her thousands of dollars since December. Okay. So right before working together, she had just actually launched a group and had 0 signups. And this is someone who has launched groups before and has had very much success with launching groups, sold out groups. Okay. And she was in a place where she's like, why isn't this working anymore? Why am I not getting anybody into my group? So I dove into it, obviously. And these were the things that I came up with. So now I'm going to go into each thing and what I saw, where the gaps were within each of these tiers. Okay. So the first thing was messaging. She's incredible at content. She's built an incredible audience. Okay. However, content has changed. The way that we do content has changed. The way that we need to conduct our content marketing system has changed. Okay. It's not going to cut it anymore just to say, hey, you want to lose 10 to 20 pounds? Your people are going to be like, does she live under a rock? Like, I've tried all of the things that tell me I can lose 10 to 20 pounds. Anybody who's like, oh, you want to heal your relationship with food? People are seeing that everywhere. It's not standing out anymore. So messaging was a major component and one of the biggest things that we focused on to allow her to essentially go from no signups to her group to, I think we ended up 8 signups in her next group that we launched together, which is epic. And I'm so proud of her. She did all of the work so incredibly. She was such a great implementer. But that was one of the main things we changed, the messaging around it. And if you're in the weight loss space, if you're in the intuitive eating space, if you're in career coaching, whatever it is, you need to not only speak to, like, your ideal client isn't just someone who wants to lose weight, someone who wants to heal their relationship with food. Your ideal client is someone who, at what level are they? Like, I want you to ask yourself that question. What level of that niche are they in? So if they're, let's say it's intuitive eating, have they read the intuitive eating book before? No? Okay, so they are a very beginner. So our content's going to be very different for someone who's never read the book before and is just getting used to the concept of intuitive eating than someone who has read the book, has tried all the things, and is in a place where they're like, is this really all there is? I'm questioning if this is my long-term solution. I'm questioning if I was just using this as another fad, right? So those are two very different people and you have to speak to them very differently. Okay. How I speak to someone who's never made a dime in their business is going to be very different than how I speak to someone who's making $20,000 a month. So I want you to think of your niche that way too. And that's where we dialed in her messaging, where she wanted to speak to someone who had a little bit more experience with her niche. It wasn't someone who's like never heard of intuitive eating before. Okay. So messaging. That's on that. Okay. Now, sales process, and this kind of goes along with messaging because a component of her sales process is discovery calls. Okay. Now, if afterwards on the discovery call, they're like, hey, let me think about it. Prior to, I can't remember what she was doing before. All I know is that what we changed it to really freaking worked. So prior to, I think she was just sending like a generic follow-up email, like, here are the details. And I was like, listen, if we want people to convert, we need a reason for them to be like, oh my gosh, this coach is the coach for me. And honestly, all people want is to be fucking seen. They just want to be seen. They just want to be heard. Why would you want to pay someone that's not making you feel seen and heard? That it's very clear you're just like another buck to them, right? So I was like, you need to make them feel that. And a generic email is not going to do that. Again, especially these days when people are getting all of these emails with all this generic language. So we crafted a very intentional follow-up template for her. So every single time that she finished a call, she was sending this very specific personalized email that converted incredibly. Incredibly. Okay. So that's very important in the sales process as well. Now, the reason I say messaging goes along with that is because messaging in that email was crucial. She didn't write in that email like her 4 pillars of her program. She customized the messaging based on what that person told her on the call and how the program that she was selling them was going to bring them to the place that they vocalized they wanted to be. So if they vocalized, hey, I really just want to be in a place where I can go to the July 4th barbecue and have a damn burger without feeling guilty, then you bet your bottom dollar she was putting that in the email and showcasing how her group coaching program was going to get that person to that place. Because of this module, because of this support, because of this, I cannot wait to get you to a place where you are able to get to that July 4th barbecue, have the freaking burger on a bun, and enjoy the hell out of it. Maybe even have some pasta salad too. So you're connecting their pain or their desire with how your product or service is the solution to it. Okay. Next, we worked on the product suite. We worked on her product suite. We worked on warming up her audience, getting her audience really familiar, not only with who she was very good at reels and getting on stories and talking and people hearing her tonality and her mannerisms and all of that type of stuff. But they needed proof that this was the right investment. They needed proof that her programs were worth the price. We needed to position her programs with such high value. In order to do that, we can't showcase any value. I mean, in the marketing, we can showcase value as much as we possibly can, but no one's going to truly understand and feel the value of her programs until they're inside, until they start to actually get a grip on them and see the way that she coaches, the way that she teaches. So, how did we do that? We actually crafted, you can do this free, you can do low ticket, but low ticket and free things are, again, more important than ever. Some like $1 million coaches that I know that never offer free shit are offering free things because it's just like people are scared. People need to learn to trust you first, and we need to give them that opportunity. Okay. So we crafted a free challenge and we were very intentional in the way that we set it up. Okay. Not only in the structure of like what she was going to be teaching, but in the structure of like, hey, we're not going to give them the whole kitchen sink. Okay. We need to make sure that they feel that there is a takeaway, a quick win. We don't want them to feel like they're walking away with this with so much information to the point where they're like, okay, yeah, I need to go like implement now. And then it delays that person signing up for the next step because they're like, I have so much to work on. I don't need to join this program. I need to work on this first. So we were very intentional about what she was teaching in that challenge, about what the challenges were every single day, and how that all ultimately led into the pitch for her group coaching. Okay. So messaging, sales process, aka follow-up emails, discovery call conduction, how we were doing that, the warming up, and the product suite. Okay. Now, the best part about all of this is that she went from last fall having 0 signups in her group to now having upwards of 8 people in her group. And I can't remember the exact logistics of the price point of her group, but I know sure as shit it's not less than $1,000. So I'm 90% sure she had a 5-figure launch, which is epic. Really freaking cool. With just a few shifts. But you can see they didn't happen overnight. This is 6 months of working together. We really got nitty gritty on what needed to change, and she implemented it so incredibly, and she reaped the return of it. Okay. So 0 signups to 8 people in her group from these shifts. Now, you can see that it took a period of time and it took a shit ton of planning. We didn't just show up one day and say, hey, you're going to start a challenge tomorrow. Because, yeah, sure, you can do that. But if your challenge isn't intentional, it's not going to convert. If your stories aren't intentional, if your content isn't intentional, it's not going to convert. This podcast episode, I already knew exactly what I was going to talk about based on what I'm selling. Because it needs to be congruent. If I'm posting about launching and then I'm like, hey, I have this story program, you're gonna be like, what? You're not priming your audience for what's coming. And in order to prime your audience for what's coming, to make your sales easier, to get more clients, you need to understand planning in advance. Okay. You need to understand how to plan, how to sell in advance, how to create a content and marketing. And ideally, you have that plan for now and the rest of 2024. Because what this is going to allow you to do is, I was going to say twofold, but it's like threefold, fourfold, fivefold, all of the things. Okay. So with this client, actually, one of the things that she came to me with was that launching a group felt really stressful because the typical launch plan is like, hey, you got 2 weeks, you got to fill this group. And that felt really hard and scary because it's like, okay, well, I have 2 weeks. What if I don't fill it? And it's just a really hard strategy to have because unless you have a massive audience and you have no problem filling groups, you're gonna have trouble with gauging at first how well your groups are gonna fill. So unless you've been doing this for years, I mean, even more than years. I've been doing this for 5 years and still I need to make sure that I have a plan. But she was feeling really, essentially, I picked out, she needed a longer launch runway. And one of the ways to do this is one of the other things we implemented, is by having a longer launch period. And when you have a longer launch period, what happens is you need additional incentives. Because why would I sign up for a group in January that's starting in June, even May, even April? We need to have incentives. So the way that we plan this out, and now the way that we're planning her next group to come, is very intentional, but she cannot launch something like this without a plan. So now we have an entire structure. She's already filling her spots for her group in September. She is already filling her spots for her group in September. And she's doing this because we've created a plan. She knows exactly what's going on from today, which is in June, through September. I actually have two clients that are currently doing this. And one of them already has someone in her group for September. She's like, oh my God, this feels so much better. So much less stressful. Because come September, when that group's doors officially open, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, I can launch this thing or I don't have to because I already have people inside. It takes the pressure off when you have a longer launch runway. Now, what are you able to do when you have a longer launch runway? When the pressure is taken off, you have more time and headspace to live your damn life, to not be overthinking and sitting there wondering how you're going to fill this group because you're like, I got time. There's plenty of time. I can be sipping my rosé on the summer porch and not be worrying about how group starts tomorrow and I have no one inside because I've already filled a majority of the spots, you know? So when you plan in advance, when you have strategic planning strategies each quarter, each year, your business is going to feel so much cleaner, so much more efficient. You're not going to be throwing spaghetti at the wall. You're going to have a plan of what content needs to be created, what emails need to be written, what sales pages need to be created, what story sets need to be posted, all of these things. Okay. And we are going to plan your entire second half of the year in Mid-Year Mastery, my mini mastermind that's 6 weeks long. We're getting started on July 8th. I am so excited. There's nothing I love more than content and planning. Planning is so freaking fun. I already did a review of some of my clients, their Q3 planning strategies, and I was like, this is I like love creating the calendars and the colors and being like, okay, it doesn't make sense for us to enroll in this group program for this amount of time because of X, Y, and Z. Let's shift this. Let's change this. And having that information can be super invaluable for your business and for you so that you can work smarter, not harder. Okay. Imagine if you have a plan all the way through December. You could quite literally, if you really get your ass into gear, take a month off of work because everything's scheduled and ready to go. Like, I mean, it's a lot of upfront work to like have your stories all filmed and all of that, but it's possible if you have a plan. And then when you have a plan after the launch, you can look back on that plan and be like, oh, that's what we did for that. That's how that one person came in. Okay, how can we amplify that? There's so much opportunity. So much opportunity. Okay. Now, you can quite literally, I was talking to another one of my clients and she did a certain amount. I think she profited like 7,000 or something in Q3. And she was like, wow, I profited 7,000. And her goal is to basically make $4,000 to $8,000 each month. And I was like, all right, let's do some math here. Okay, if we double your income, it's not even anything crazy. All we have to do is double it. It's not five tuple it. All we have to do is double it. You will be there. And that's something that if we didn't create her planning strategy, we wouldn't know how we're going to get there. You know, when like you're out on the road and you get a new car and your reticular, so it's your reticular activating system that does this, but you're on the road, you're going to get a new car, you're in your new car and you start seeing that car fucking everywhere. That's your reticular activating system. And if you aren't making yourself aware of these things, you're not going to be open to the opportunities that come to you that are meant for you because you're not making yourself aware of them. So it's the same with planning. If you're not writing out your dream life and things that you really want and you desire, you're not going to be aware of the things that are going on around you, all the opportunities for you to get there. So when she did this planning, she's like, hey, I really want X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, great. How are we going to get there? We came up with her strategy to fill those spots. We came up with her strategy to what she's going to post on in content, all of these types of things. But if she wasn't aware that, hey, I want to hit $8,000 a month and how many clients are required to get there, she's not going to be available for the opportunities that are out there for her to get there. So, with the desire to double her income, we had to plan for it. And we're going to keep going. And I cannot wait to watch her double it. Okay. But you can take this investment of mid-year mastery and you can quite literally make 10, 20, $30,000 more than you did in the first half of the year. Okay. And my one client, we're on track to double her income because of the plan that we created. And this is the plan that we're going to create in mid-year mastery. Okay. So we get started July 8th. As of today, when this episode comes out, today is the last day of presale. You can get this thing for under $1,000, under $1,000 for 6 weeks of support. 6 weeks of support, a call every single week, and messenger support in between. Okay. Group calls with incredible humans, no more than 6 people at a time. I like to keep my groups very intimate. That's very important to me. If we have more than that, I will open a second cohort. But that's one of my values as of right now. Okay. So I would love to have you inside. We're going to create your bulletproof profit planning strategy in mid-year mastery. It's going to be absolutely epic. If you want more details, DM me on Instagram, bulletproof. And we will also have the link to purchase and sign up with us in the podcast show notes. All right. I will talk to you all soon. Bye.